I'm Jeff.
And I'm Steve.
We're out here looking for something that's been buried for thousands of years.
We can't tell you where we are, but we can tell you that we're the Meteorite Men.
Blazing across the night sky, they arrive without warning. Visitors from other worlds who've traveled millions of miles and now lie buried, waiting to be discovered. Steve Arnold and Jeff Notkin are driven by a single obsession: to unearth these alien visitors.
Look at that.
They are meteorite hunters.
Oh! What could be more mysterious and exciting than looking for lost bits of the universe that have landed on Earth? Oh! It's a monster.
Their quest takes them around the world, searching for rocks from deep space that hold answers to our biggest questions.
They are the oldest record of the very beginnings of our solar system.
Their mission is part science,
This might have seeded life on our planet.
Woo!
part treasure hunting,
A lot of meteorites are worth more than gold.
complete with ancient maps, secret sites, and something never seen before.
These meteorites are packed with gemstones from outer space.
You're wearing a part of creation around your neck when you're wearing this, because this is the interior of a planet.
Wow!
It's just another day's adventure for the Meteorite Men.
This is looking quite big.
Steve Arnold and Jeff Notkin are modern-day treasure hunters. Their typical morning begins like most of ours, with a commute. But today, their commute will take them deep into the heartland of America on a quest for the ultimate buried treasure, meteorites that date back to the origins of our solar system.
I became a meteorite hunter by accident. I was actually doing some research on how to do treasure hunting, and I ran across a newspaper story from 1890 where this lady had found a meteorite and had sold it to the chancellor of the University of Kansas. And I went, wow, meteorites were worth money over 100 years ago. I wonder if they're worth money today.
Steve poured through public records and found old maps of meteorite finds.
All of a sudden, I had these maps, and they were like real treasure maps. First one.
The clues on those maps led Steve to some major meteorite discoveries that were soon in demand with collectors and scientists.
Woo!
Then in 2005, while searching in a wheat field in the middle of Kansas, Steve unearthed a record-setting 1,430-pounder. The media dubbed it the $1 Million Rock.
It was like, oh my God, this is the day my life has just changed.
Steve's meteorite hunting partner is Jeff Notkin. Jeff got hooked on outer space as a child in London.
I got permission from my parents to skip school and stay home and watch the Apollo moon landings on television.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I was probably 6 or 7, and my mother took me to the Geological Museum in London. There's this dark, moody, ominous room, and it's full of meteorites. I was just stunned. I mean, these things were actually from out there. These weren't rocks from Earth. These were visitors from space. And they let me put my hands on these meteorites, and it was chilling. And from that moment on, I was bitten, and I never recovered from that bite.
Steve and Jeff met in 1997 on a meteorite hunting expedition in Chile. They've been hunting as a team ever since. Although they've traveled the world together and share the same birthday, the similarities end there.
I grew up a football star in Kansas, and he was a punk rock star in London.
Steve's conservative.
He is very liberal. Jeff's a neat freak. Some would say I'm sloppy.
I am a vegetarian.
And I'm a strict carnivore.
The thing we have in common is we love getting out into the wild places and digging for space rocks.
Today, Jeff and Steve are heading for Brenham, Kansas, where several thousand years ago, a large meteorite had the same destination. Their goal is to find remnants of that ancient rock.
Well, look at what the wind blew in. How you doing?
It was a tornado, actually.
Yeah.
I saw Dorothy on my way, and
And Toto?
I didn't see the dog, but she was standing.
Pieces of the Brenham meteorite have been unearthed in these fields for more than a century. It was thought that everything had been recovered. That is, until Steve found his record-setting rock here.
Everyone thought there can't possibly be any more meteorites there because people have been hunting since the 1880s. There probably isn't even a pea-sized piece left. That's what everyone thought except Steve. He just rocked the meteorite world. The biggest Brenham ever found.
Inspired by the big find, Steve and Jeff believe that some of the largest pieces of the meteorite are still deep underground, beyond the scope of traditional detection equipment.
Ready to find some rocks?
All right, let's go, let's go. I want to see.
So they've come with an arsenal of tools.
My saw.
Because most meteorites have a high iron content, metal detectors are essential. Steve and Jeff bring several.
This is one of my favorite metal detectors. It doesn't have a very big range, but it's really good for finding smaller targets or for pinpointing larger targets when you're close to them.
All metal detectors work on the same basic principle. A signal is sent through a coil and broadcast into the ground as an electromagnetic field. Encountering metallic objects alters that field, and that change in frequency is heard on a speaker.
There's our signal. That little beep tells us we found a metallic object. Unfortunately, by the time I get up to here, a couple of feet away, can't see the target anymore.
This detector, you'll notice the coil is really big. And this allows us to go even deeper.
But for meteorites even deeper underground, you need a detector with an even bigger coil.
This is what we call the 1 meter coil. May look completely different from the other detectors, but basically it's the same thing. Here's the control box, sends a signal down this wire, and here's the coil that sends our electromagnetic pulse down into the ground looking for targets. This piece of equipment will find a meteorite 5, 6, 7, 8 feet underground if it's a large target. We love it.
But Steve and Jeff need to think even bigger. So Steve designed the ultimate meteorite hunting weapon.
This is probably kind of how the Wright brothers assembled their first airplane.
Okay, let's lift this over. You don't go to your favorite mega store and go to the meteorite hunting aisle and find the stuff you need to hunt.
How do these things get so tangled up on their own?
To search large areas, Steve envisioned a giant metal detector that could be pulled by a truck or an ATV.
If you want to find the big stuff, you gotta go big.
His solution was a sled made of PVC pipe, big enough to carry a metal detecting coil 50 feet long.
Oh yeah, don't forget the flag. Could we put a small English flag up there as well?
Because there can't be any metal near the coil, plastic zip ties and duct tape are used to fasten it to the sled.
Over the back.
Fully assembled, the detector measures 126 square feet and can detect meteorites 10 to 20 feet deep.
Oh, I feel like Charlton Heston and Ben-Hur. In the old days, hunters would walk a field like this using the little handheld detectors. It's hundreds of acres. You could spend your whole life doing it. With this unit that Steve designed himself, we can cover a huge area like this in a couple of days.
But even with the best equipment, knowing where to search for the hidden rocks comes down to understanding just how the meteorite first made its entry into our atmosphere.
Now, when an asteroid comes into the Earth's atmosphere, it usually will break up. The force on the masses is tremendous. It breaks up into multiple pieces. So the rock will come in, and as it comes in, the smaller pieces start to drop off, but the larger pieces with more inertia will go further.
The landing zone is called a strewn field because the meteorites are literally strewn along a path by the disintegrating meteor. At Brenham, that path spreads out over 9 square miles.
In this particular place, we have 125 years of documented meteorite recoveries, and so what we do is go back into the old records and find out where other pieces have been found.
So we put all that intelligence together into a map. The yellow is the approximate boundary of the strewn field, and the red stars are some of the meteorites that have been found. The biggest star right here is the largest Brenham meteorite, which was found by Steve a couple of years ago in that field just over there. So we're really close.
Their hunch is that other massive pieces followed the same trajectory as Steve's large find. So their search today begins in a sprawling field adjacent to that area. But the odds are still stacked against them. They're trying to find rocks that traveled millions of miles and have been buried for thousands of years, somewhere under 9 square miles of farmland.
You have to be prepared to really put in a lot of time if you want to be a meteorite hunter. It's not the kind of thing where you can say, gee, I'm going to go out and find a meteorite and find one on your first day. It's just not going to happen. We've gone out in the field sometimes for weeks at a time, 10 hours a day, 5 days, and we don't find anything.
But today, just a few hours into the search, the huge detector picks up a strong signal, which could be the beacon of a meteorite buried deep beneath the surface.
Right here, Jeff, I think. There we go.
Using the 1-meter coil, they zero in on their target.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
It's a pretty good sized target. Really encouraging, really strong.
Okay, right there.
The target is right in the sweet spot of the strewn field, not far from where Steve found the 1,400-pounder.
Just down there is where you found the monster.
Yeah,
It's
right.
almost perfectly aligned, right? Right in the middle of the
And
big
it sounds
zone.
deep.
I want to dig it by hand.
Yeah, yeah. You start digging, I'm calling the backhoe, all right?
Okay, Dan, we did an exact pinpoint. That flag's right on top of it.
Dan Woods, a Brenham local, has been helping Steve dig for meteorites for years.
Dan is as good as it gets on the backhoe. There's nobody I'd trust more to get a rock out of the hole than Dan.
There you go.
It's sitting down here where it could be 1,500, 2,000 pounds. Who knows? Who knows?
If Steve's prediction is right, they could be sitting on the biggest Brenham find ever.
Just so you know.
They carefully dig trenches on both sides of the target and use the small detectors to pinpoint its exact location.
I'm getting it, but it's stronger on that side and that side's deeper, so
Okay.
we're probably still further down.
Okay.
Yeah, the deeper the target is, the bigger it has to be in order for our detectors to see it. So the anticipation's building there.
Dan, go ahead and a little more. If you bump into something, stop.
Okay.
Okay, keep going. I don't see anything yet. Getting down to the clay. That's a good sign.
There's a certain point below which you're almost guaranteed to have something, because man-made materials, debris, farm implements, cast-off bits of junk tends to be in about the top 3 feet. So when you start to get down into that dense clay layer, there's not going to be anything human-made down there unless it was purposefully buried, and that's pretty unlikely in the middle of a field in Kansas. There's something in there.
Oh. Oh. What is it?
That doesn't look very encouraging.
No, it doesn't. Let's take a little bit off
Yeah.
of here. And Dan, let's go slowly right here on the top. Ooh, 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 ooh.
It's a little
Wow. Looks like more of the same.
weird. What the hell is that?
It looks like a 55-gallon drum. Oh, look, and a barrel inside a barrel. How lucky can we get? 2 barrels in one hole.
It's a double meteorong.
In the meteorite world, we have what are called meteorites, and then what we affectionately call meteorongs. Now, a meteorong could be just a black rock. It can be an old horseshoe or a pair of pliers, or it's amazing the different things that are found out in a field. Look at that. That comes with the territory. You got to find where they're not to make sure you've really covered all the places that they could be. That was a really good signal, and it's sitting in a spot where it could have been a monster, and it could have been a ton or more, and it wasn't
What can we get for that on eBay? Oh, well, all in a day's work. We know another spot where there's not a meteorite. I get sick of saying that.
Steve and Jeff redouble their efforts. They're still convinced that these fields contain undiscovered pieces of the famous Brenham meteorite that broke up as it entered the atmosphere several thousand years ago. But despite the common image of the burning meteorite crashing to Earth, the reality is far different.
Contrary to popular belief, meteorites are not burning hot when they hit the Earth. People that have been lucky enough to get there shortly after the fall and touch it or pick it up report that they're either cold or slightly warm to the touch.
What we see as a fireball is still miles above the Earth. Most meteorites burn out well before they make impact.
Although they may hit our atmosphere at many thousands of miles per hour, most meteorites don't make craters. Atmospheric braking slows them down. A typical meteorite might hit the surface of the Earth at a few hundred miles per hour, same speed as a golf ball.
2 more hours of searching and still nothing. Suddenly, the metal detector is triggered to life. It's another signal, even stronger than the last one. And less than a mile from where they uncovered the barrel.
We're getting a longer signal this way than this way.
Yeah.
Backhoe? All right. I'm not guessing this time.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to pay when we guess. We end up with trash.
It just embarrasses you.
Yeah. By pointing the detector down in the corner, we see that it's still probably deeper. And the signal is a lot louder on this side. So the target's a little closer to that.
You're good. Deeper's always good.
The further underground we go, the older the layers are. And so it's time travel. 250 years ago, there wouldn't have been anyone out here that knew how to work iron and steel. So once we get below that time period, there's nothing human anymore. The only things down there may be extraterrestrial.
Oh, wow. Right here.
Okay, let's jump in the hole with the shovels. Dig it out by hand.
Yeah, we're getting awfully
close.
I don't
I'm
want
getting
to knock the
nervous.
top off.
Oh.
What's happened is we've just hit this little pocket, and it looks like there's some little crystals in there. So we could have just encountered the outer corroded layer of a meteorite. So we're taking it real easy.
There it is.
Oh yeah, the magnet's sticking right through the ground. These meteorites contain a great deal of iron, so when we get right on top of the target, we'll put a very powerful rare earth magnet down in there to see if we can connect with the surface.
Reaching into that hole and scraping that dirt off the first time and seeing that little bit sticking up out of the dirt and knowing that it's from outer space. It's just shocking. Every time I still get chills. I go, wow, it really is. It's not a pipe or a horseshoe or a plow blade. It's the real thing.
Oh, wow! Oh. Wow, it's a nice rounded shape. This is looking quite big.
It looks like the metal is rusted into the soil. Well,
Look at that. The outer layer of this meteorite's corroded, and pieces are just flaking right off.
looks like there's a crystal in it.
Oh.
That crystal indicates that this is a palisite, an extremely rare type of meteorite.
A palisite is a stony iron meteorite that's made up of roughly equal parts of iron, nickel, and olivine, also known as the gemstone peridot.
It's pretty substantial.
Palisites originated several billion years ago when the core of an asteroid or planet was molten iron and nickel. It's on the outside edge of that core where Palisites form their unique mixture of elements.
If you cut them thin, they'll become translucent. You can hold them up and light will come through, and it's like a cosmic stained glass window.
The light shines through and you see these crystals, these gorgeous, glorious, brilliantly colored crystals.
Think of it like chocolate chips being mixed into cookie dough. In some areas, you have higher concentration of chocolate chips. In others, you may not get any. And so the crystals are like the chocolate chips, the cosmic cookie. So the way the cookie crumbled, sometimes they're all solid iron in an area that the crystals just didn't get assimilated or distributed in the formation. And then others are more evenly. And so we're seeing some crystals, but we're also seeing some oxidation. Oh my! Oh! Jeff, look at it. Look at it.
It's a monster.
This amazing bit of some planet that's billions of years old, that burned in our atmosphere and fell in the mud and sat there for thousands of years and nobody knew that it was there.
It's too heavy to lift, and that's really good news.
We find it, we pull it out. It's something you don't forget. It's an amazing moment.
Wow. That is a chunk.
Not only has it been reintroduced to sunlight, but we are the first humans ever to see this visitor from outer space.
At 230 pounds, this Palisite ranks in the top 1% of all meteorite finds in the world.
It's kind of a special moment for us.
And proves that Steve and Jeff's hunch was right about there being more meteorites in the Brenham-Strewn field. They're now convinced that there are even more treasures to uncover here, and they're determined to get to them first. Kansas is a meteorite hunter's mecca with 140 documented meteorite falls, more per square mile than any other place in the U.S. Although scientists don't know why so many meteorites end up in Kansas, they have a pretty good idea of where they started their journey.
Most specialists agree that most or all meteorites were once part of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter in our own solar system. So a large planet or asteroid breaks apart for whatever reason. Perhaps it collided with another one. Things crash into each other up there in the asteroid belt all the time, apparently. There are billions of pieces of cosmic debris wandering around up there in space. And every now and then, our planet bumps into one of them.
The meteorite fall in Brenham has been heavily searched for decades. But Steve and Jeff still believe the area is rich with potential meteorites, if you know where to look. Steve and Jeff know where to look, but they still have to cover hundreds of acres. How do they keep track of where they've been? Their secret is industrial strength GPS.
When I cover acres and acres of ground, I want to make sure I get every square inch covered. What I found out was farmers have already done this. They've used GPS technology to direct their tractors. So I've adapted this technology for hunting for meteorites. A car GPS might get you within a couple hundred feet. This is going to get us within a couple of inches. I'll set it with a path on here, and then I follow it, and then it tells me to turn around, and within inches, I can come back the other direction. This screen will give me an arrow that will point me in the direction I need to go. When I get really close, I have red lights up on the bar that will tell me when I'm too far off. If I'm centered perfectly, I get 3 good green lights up there. So I could be a little bit blurry on this, but still focusing on where I'm going, and it keeps me on track. This enables me to make sure I get every bit of it covered.
We get a little more specific with these smaller handheld units to exactly pinpoint the find. So it helps us go back, locate it, dig it up. But more than that, it helps us compile very accurate strewn field data, because we can then take the latitude and longitude and our altitude. And all of that information helps us compile the most accurate strewn field map that we can.
After searching 30 more acres, they encounter another strong target.
We get the tractor in?
Let's go, Dan.
A few minutes ago, this detector got nothing. Now we got a solid target there, so we're getting closer.
Farmer Denny Ross keeps a close eye on the dig. His family owns the land, and Steve approached him for permission to search.
He drew up a contract and we'd split the share of one if he sold one and found it so. Oh, just hit something pretty big, I think.
That was it, okay. Let's get a shovel. Right there.
Oh, look how round it is.
To their amazement, it looks like another meteorite.
Wow. We've just exposed a tiny bit of it, and what always makes us really happy is when the magnet sticks.
Look how deep it is.
Wow. Yeah. That's one of the really great moments when you uncover a little bit of it, and you go, oh yeah, it really is a meteorite. And then you uncover a bit more, and then some mud falls off, and you go, oh wow, it's actually that big.
We got a big one.
1, 2, 3.
Woo!
At 273 pounds, this find is even larger than the first.
2 for 3. That's not bad odds, actually, in this game.
Both are in the top 1% of all meteorite discoveries in the world.
This is the land of the giants. And it's almost like going on a safari at Jurassic Park. It's just, this is about as good as it can get.
Agreed. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is how we're going to get it out of the field.
Yeah, no kidding.
The odds of finding 2 meteorites this large on one expedition is like winning the lottery twice. Each rock could bring in $100,000 or more. The next destination for these rocks will most likely be a private collection, museum, or research facility. In fact, the scientists who study meteorites rely on hunters like Steve and Jeff to provide samples.
We donate a piece of every new specimen that's found to science, and they're able to get a lot of information. They're able to classify the rock as to what type it is.
It benefits everybody because they get a sample, a specimen to work with, and we get the benefit of their expertise, of their knowledge.
So with more than 500 pounds of meteorites in the back seat, Steve and Jeff take to the highway. Their 1,000-mile journey ends at Arizona State University, home of one of the top meteorite studies programs in the nation. Before entering the research center, they give their space rocks a good cleaning and remove a sample slice to be used for testing. Lawrence Garvey, the manager of the school's meteorite collection, takes the sample and preps it to be analyzed.
We're just going to do a very rough polish.
ASU's I-beam lab has a particle accelerator. It's one of the few instruments that can quickly determine if Steve and Jeff's find is extraterrestrial or just an ordinary rock from Kansas.
Okay, let's start a spectrum right here.
It does it by firing a beam of protons into a solid target. Based on the energy released by the collision, scientists can determine the exact composition of the rock atom by atom. They are looking for an abundance of nickel and iron, a mix rarely found in rocks on Earth.
In less than 10 seconds, and I can already see the nickel peak, these 2 peaks right here. The 2 big peaks right next to it are iron, and not much else to look at. So this metallic part is quite pure.
The analysis clearly shows that the dominant element is iron, with a significant presence of 8 to 15% nickel. Overwhelming evidence that this rock is not from our planet.
We see that nickel peak to begin to show up. We know we're onto something because nickel is the tell for us. That's a real classic meteorite spectrum right there.
That's what I like to hear. Classic meteorite spectrum.
Tests also confirmed that the pieces Steve and Jeff found were part of the historic Brenham meteorite.
We analyzed their piece and we compared it with a piece of Brenham that we have in our collection, and they matched up in terms of the content of nickel in these samples.
Professor Meenakshi Wadhwa, who directs the ASU Meteorite Studies program, is an analytical geochemist.
I want you to guess which one of these is a meteorite and which one's a meteoron.
My work focuses on trying to understand when the planets are forming and how the planets are forming. And you can do that by studying meteorites because they are the oldest record that we have of the very beginnings of our solar system.
In fact, ASU has a collection that includes meteorites that were formed even before our solar system.
These were probably the very first solids to form 4.5 billion years ago. They even contain particles that actually formed around other stars before our sun was even formed. They're basically stardust.
In your hand, you're holding the oldest matter that anyone on our planet could possibly touch with their hand.
Exactly, 4.5 billion years old and older, as I said.
Looks great for its age.
Yes.
Holding up quite well.
These rocks basically have a story to tell, and as we improve our analytical techniques, there'll be more things that we can learn from them.
Tucked away in a drawer is one of the rarest meteorites in the university's collection, a small rock that scientists hope will answer some big questions.
The famous Murchison.
Yeah,
Does it really smell?
It does. You want to smell it?
Wow, it's the smell of outer space.
It's actually got a lot of organic materials in it.
The Murchison meteorite is classified as a carbonaceous chondrite, a type of stony meteorite containing the organic element carbon. They are the most primitive and unaltered type of meteorite known.
It's dirty.
Yeah, it's still got some of
clean that up,
the...
would you?
Yeah, it's still got some of the dirt on it.
Scientists believe this ancient rock may hold answers to the mystery of how life on Earth began.
Certain types of meteorites, like the carbonaceous chondrite, most likely did bring the organic materials from which life could have gotten started on our own planet.
So we're looking at one of our ancestors there, possibly.
Well, you know, it
Kind of a
could be
cousin.
the raw
We didn't
materials.
descend
The raw
from it.
materials
Okay, all right.
for life.
No wonder we're so into meteorites. We're descended from them.
Well, maybe you are.
Today, they're heading back out to the field to a site they simply call Alpha. They're keeping the exact location under wraps because they believe there are meteorites here that contain something rare and extremely valuable.
Turn off the cameras.
Before filming is allowed on the site, the camera crew must sign confidentiality agreements promising not to reveal the location.
Welcome to what we call the Alpha Site.
This is one of our favorite meteorite hunting grounds. Come on, Steve. Let's go find some meteorites.
Like Brenham, the Alpha site is a location where meteorites have been found in the past. But unlike Brenham, which had been searched heavily, there are very few documented finds at Alpha. In fact, there was no existing strewn field map to give them an idea of how far the fall extended, so they had to make their own. In essence, they are hunting in virgin territory.
We're looking at about, what, 7 miles now?
Yeah, maybe a little more.
The exact location where we are today is right on the center line of the strewn field. It's not an actual existing landmark, but it is a theoretical line that Steve plotted through the known area containing all meteorite finds from this fall.
But there's never a guarantee. And here at Alpha, it's even more of a shot in the dark because of the limited historical records.
Steve, it's really loud. It sounds near the surface.
Please scratch around. Make sure it's something right or something wrong.
Okay.
Metal post or something.
What'd you find?
I don't even know.
Whoa, I've got something over here. I bet it's just a piece of old farm equipment. You know, Babe Ruth was the home run king, but he was also the strikeout king. And so you have to be willing to strike out a lot. Well, hey, you add that to the collection, I guess.
It's kind of cool, actually. Certainly iron. Didn't you say this was the best bit of the strewn field?
Jeff, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
We got a monster target here.
That's a 2 shovel signal.
I think you're right.
Like Forrest Gump's mom said, meteorite hunting's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. It can't be terribly deep, or it wouldn't have. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's not a meteorite.
Wow! What a signal!
It's an iron snake. Look at the size of that chain. You could tie the Queen Mary down with that. Oof. Well, we really thought we had one there. Toss that in the back of the truck and see what else we can come up with. Hopefully something a little older than this. Watch that. There's some really big boulders sticking out at the side. They'll make toast out of the detector. I'm sure you've seen them, but just take it easy.
Roger that.
Not that you're scared of a few boulders or anything like that. We hardly ever seem to have a whole day where something doesn't go wrong.
And when the giant metal detector goes down, it brings the search to a halt.
You broke it again by driving too fast. Sometimes it'll just be a minor thing. We might break one of the struts or a small piece fall off. That's easy to fix. But when one of the big struts breaks, it can be a real pain in the neck.
It's a never-ending process.
This one's cracked as well. The more it breaks, the more a gargantuan assembly it becomes.
Grab a couple paper towels. Set that down now. Go back there. Okay, hold that there.
I think Steve likes to think of me as his butler. Here.
Hold that.
Jeff, can you clean this? Jeff, can you hand me that saw? Jeff, can you hold this pipe? So it's not exactly what you'd call high-tech work, but the perks are very good. Steve's truck is one of the messiest things I've ever seen. It's a kind of collection of random garbage. Is this your filing cabinet back here? Rusty old tools, bits of clothing. Steve, I've never seen so much garbage in one truck. It's just all thrown haphazardly in there together, and then he goes,
Find the monkey wrench in the back.
It's like going through a garbage dump trying to find something. Have you ever thought of keeping all your tools in one box?
Oh, like a toolbox?
It's disgusting.
You just have to know where to look.
After losing several hours, Steve and Jeff are back on the hunt.
Hey, Jeff, that one sounded strong.
I'm gonna check it. This smaller unit has a very limited range, and the fact that I'm getting a loud signal means that it's either a very big target or it's something really close to the surface, or possibly both.
Let's see what we got here.
The few documented meteorite finds at Alpha were buried closer to the surface, so Steve and Jeff have foregone the backhoe here. Shovels and sweat should be all they need to uncover a target. It's possible that the meteorite fall at Alpha is more recent than the one at Brenham, so there has been less time for soil to build up.
Oh!
You got something?
Yeah. I don't want to hit it hard.
Oh!
Wow. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look
That
at the
looks
rust.
really good.
Dude! Finally! Look at that.
That's potentially a nice shape.
Yeah. How long have you been waiting? This rock has come from so far and has been sitting there so long, I haven't been hunting nearly as long as this guy's been traveling to get to me.
Oh, wow.
Look at that.
The latest visitor from outer space to be discovered on the Earth.
At 33 pounds, this meteorite is considerably smaller than the finds at Brenham. But the minute they pulled it out of the ground, Steve and Jeff saw something in the rock that could be far more valuable.
This meteorite contains something we've never seen in a meteorite. Here's our newest find, and as he's a bit of a VIP, he gets to ride up front with me. Place of honor.
But as they head out to examine their latest find, they hit another strong signal.
Whoa. That was something. You grabbed 2 detectors and no shovels.
What can I tell you? I'm a gearhead.
Finding 2 of the rare alpha rocks in one day is extremely unlikely, but Steve and Jeff still check out every signal.
It's digging time. Again.
Even after all these years, not for 1 minute does it become humdrum. It's like digging through tarmac. Man, this is hard digging.
This is steep.
So much for shallow targets in Alpha.
Let's keep digging.
I never go, oh, do we have to dig up another meteorite? How tiresome. This could be an extraterrestrial visitor down here. Resting's not allowed. To go anywhere and even find one tiny meteorite is a great achievement.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's definitely something down there. Space is huge. Those fragments of debris from the asteroid belt could have gone anywhere. Away from Earth, into the sun, a million billion possibilities. A piece encounters the Earth's atmosphere, it doesn't melt, burn up completely. It falls to Earth, it doesn't fall in the ocean, it doesn't fall in the Arctic or in the rainforests. It actually lands somewhere where we might one day find it. It's definitely sticking to a magnet.
Wow. It looks like a corner of a meteorite. I don't think it's a meteor wrong.
We have overcome literally astronomical odds to find one. We may need to dig a fairly large hole to get this guy out.
Exhausted but exhilarated, they're now in a flat-out race to dig it out before the sun sets.
There's a nice little corner exposed. We might be able to lever it up from that.
Oh!
It's moving a little bit. That was a superhuman effort.
my-
Look, it's kind of wedge-shaped.
Oh! It looks like a spaceship.
It is a
Look
monster.
at that. Look at that.
What a privilege it is to be the first humans ever to see this amazing thing that traveled millions of miles, to see us, to be here. Not only a visitor from outer space, but a very substantial one.
At 109 pounds, this find is more than 3 times the size of the first Alpha rock. And upon closer examination, Steve and Jeff are even more excited about the meteorites they've uncovered here.
It's just covered in all these little indentations. It's so unusual.
But it's what's inside those indentations that sets the Alpha meteorites apart.
It is packed with olivine crystals.
The mineral olivine, named for its olive green color, is commonly found on Earth. In gem form, it's known as peridot, the August birthstone. But meteorites containing olivine are extremely rare. And what makes Steve and Jeff's find so amazing is that much of the olivine has made the tumultuous journey to Earth without shattering.
For example, the Brenham meteorite. If you look at a slice of Brenham, all the crystals are shattered in it.
But the crystals in the Alpha meteorites are remarkably clear and unbroken.
Harder and harder to find.
For Steve and Jeff, that means that the rocks they've been finding at Alpha may soon be coveted by more than just scientists and collectors.
What's exciting is that we're finding quite a few of these crystals are gem quality. And so we are able to facet gemstones out of them.
Steve sent one of the faceted stones to gemologist John Koivula, an expert on peridot from meteorites.
It's the only extraterrestrial gem we have. A good portion of the asteroid belt consists of rocks, basically, and then a few have the olivine grains. So it's a rarity to begin with, right in the asteroid belt. And how many of them are going to actually hit the Earth? Not many. So when one does hit, it's a rare occurrence.
In the world of gems, rare equals pricey. Peridot found on Earth goes for about $60 a carat, while peridot from meteorites sells for more than $1,000 a carat.
This is one of Steve Arnold's stones. Actually, this is very big for an extraterrestrial peridot, and it's very nice. So basically, you're wearing a part of creation around your neck when you're wearing this, because this is the interior of a planet. That's what it is. It's a piece of an interior of a planet.
When you think about it, these meteorites are literally packed with gemstones from outer space.
So how can the GIA tell if a gemstone is from outer space or from right here on Earth? Experts like Koivula can look for microscopic details inside the gems.
The inclusions you find in the extraterrestrial peridot are shock remnants, and they form along structural planes. This is multiple cleavages.
And terrestrial peridot inclusions have a distinctly different look under the microscope.
This is a relatively common inclusion in a terrestrial peridot, one from planet Earth.
But what if the source of peridot can't be distinguished by looking under a microscope?
Then we would rely on the chemical profiles created by the mass spectrometer.
A mass spectrometer works by placing a sample in an airtight chamber, and a laser vaporizes small bits of the sample. The flashing circle of light is the laser firing. The vaporized material is then fed into a plasma torch, a jet of gas as hot as the surface of the sun. The mass spectrometer sorts out the basic chemical elements and creates a fingerprint that is unique for extraterrestrial gemstones like peridot.
What's even more amazing is the discovery made by accident. The alpha stones, when cut and polished, display chatoyance, the mysterious light within the stone, similar to light reflecting in a cat's eye.
Chatoyance has never been seen in a meteorite before. Steve's and Jeff's discovery opens up a new scientific question of why this effect has only appeared in the alpha stones, a question that may help unlock some of the many mysteries carried to Earth by these extraterrestrial visitors. The Meteorite Men are a new breed of space explorer, seeking out hidden traces of our cosmic past buried deep beneath the surface of our planet. And their quest is just beginning.
There are big meteorites out there waiting to be found. There are meteorites out there that probably landed yesterday that no one's seen, and there are meteorites out there that landed 1,000 years ago that nobody's seen. Come on, Steve, let's go find some meteorites.
Let's go.
We as humans are fascinated by mysteries, particularly the really big mysteries, like what is our place in the universe?
Meteorites tell us something about the very deep past, 4.5 billion years ago when our solar system was just forming.
It's kind of this unending quest of chasing down knowledge.
But more than that, it's a chance for us to hold in our hand a little bit of the substance of space that has, against all odds, found its way to our planet.
Hey, Jeff, sounds like we got something here.
Our planet generates an incredible amount of extraordinary phenomena. Some we take for granted, even if they are a little difficult to predict. Others occur to us as nothing short of miraculous. Often, these are events in places seldom seen by people. They are rare, mysterious, and many seem outright impossible. This series encapsulates the remarkable with the exceptional. Is seeing really believing? With the help of leading scientists, fact will be separated from fiction. Join us as we set out to discover the secrets of Australia's impossibly pink Lake Hillier, unravel the formation of Iceland's Glacier Lagoon and Diamond Beach, and walk amongst China's stone forest. It is a journey taken with eyes wide open. Welcome to Impossible Planet. There are few lakes in the world that are as conspicuous and unique as this one. This is Lake Hillier, a body of water 10 times saltier than the ocean. A lake exceptional for its stunning hue of pink. Is it possible that anything on this planet could be rendered this color naturally? What can explain the extraordinary blushing color of this otherworldly lake? With its incandescent color, Lake Hillier has captivated and baffled those who have come across it.
It's a bit confusing to the senses, but absolutely breathtaking. It's the color of the lake that seems impossible. How can this body of water be bright pink?
Off the southern coast of Australia lies a series of small islands spanning over 140 miles. The largest of these is Middle Island, situated 80 nautical miles from the mainland. It is home to Lake Hillier, a place so striking, so unusual, it looks as though it's from another planet.
It's extremely unique and something that very few people have been able to experience, really. Like nothing else in the world.
Surrounded by the unforgiving Great Southern Ocean, as well as great white sharks and shipwrecks, Middle Island is rarely visited. Its unique geographical location makes it the ideal place for holding secrets. For a long time, Lake Hillier was one of them, until 2016, when the lake's mysterious color was finally accounted for. For centuries, Middle Island has been a magnet for adventure and mystery. It's believed to be home to Australia's oldest gravestone. It hosted the renowned navigator Matthew Flinders, who led the first circumnavigation of the continent. But perhaps its most notorious resident was an American pirate known as Black Jack Anderson.
Middle Island has the notorious distinction of having the only pirate on the Australian mainland that operated around here back in the 1830s. It was an Afro-American by the name of Black Jack Anderson.
He basically ruled these waters with like an iron fist all those years ago.
Black Jack relished the harsh and rugged environment, using it as the perfect base from which to plunder his way along the coast. A recent bushfire uncovered numerous structural remains built by Jack. Before he met his demise on the island at the hands of his crew. The first people to come across Middle Island's Pink Lake were the ancestors of Doc Reynolds. As well as being a senior traditional owner, Doc Reynolds is an Aboriginal custodian of the area.
We're the most eastern of the 14 tribes of the Noongar Nation, and the Widari mob, and my mum's mob, which is the Nookari mob. We're basically the mob that lived around the Middle Island.
The presence of Aboriginal people on the island can be traced back thousands of years, way back to the time of the last ice age, before sea levels rose to create these islands and separate them from the mainland.
Middle Island is what we call Gullich, which is just general generic term for island. We know that there's been Aboriginal occupation on the islands, but we believe that happened before the water levels rose, and some of that dates back between 12 to 15 to 20,000 years.
Doc Reynolds has led a team of marine archaeologists to Middle Island, where the discoveries included a number of rare Aboriginal tools, helping to establish the presence of Aboriginal Australians here over thousands of years.
We found a huge amount of Aboriginal artefact on the island, which showcases evidence that Aboriginal people did live there.
When Doc explored Middle Island for himself, he came across landforms that his ancestors would have found generations before him.
There's a magnificent big number holes on the island, and also big freshwater hills of water on the islands. And the most significant feature on the island, of course, is Lake Hillier, which is a bright pink lake, and it's quite unique.
Although the origin of the lake's color has been a mystery to science for decades, Doc's people have their own explanation, dating back to a period they call the Dream Time.
Our story that we have on the mainland regarding our pink lake turned around to depict the killing of a Noran. The Noran is, to us, is the rainbow serpent or the snake. And of course, the men actually killed him on this nice big white lake. And what happened when they killed the snake, the blood poured over the lake, made it go pink. And then, of course, then that night, the people seen the red sky reflection in up there, and then they knew tomorrow was going to be okay now because the Noran is dead.
Just as the view of the sky could be uplifting to Doc's people thousands of years ago, today it's the view from the sky that others find awe-inspiring.
The contrast of the really clear turquoise water, white sandy beach, and then the nice bit of green shrubbery before the pink lake from an aerial perspective just looks spectacular.
Jamin Hudson is a remote vehicle operator who's one of the few people in the world to have flown a drone over the lake. When Jamin was 18 years old, he lost the use of his legs in a road vehicle accident. Wheelchair-bound, his trip to Hillier Lake is the first of its kind.
You know, I'm in a wheelchair. It's probably the least wheelchair accessible place in the world. But last year, I was very lucky to actually get onto the island and make it through all the bush tracks and get right up next to the lake. I remember when I first saw it, looking at it and just thinking, like, it really is pink. You see photos and videos. These days, with so much Photoshop, you really don't know what to believe, you know? And I mean, of course, I knew it was true. But until you see anything with your own two eyes, you don't realise quite how special it is. I know for sure I'm definitely the only person in a wheelchair that's ever been lucky enough to sit next to that lake. To sit next to it, I mean, it's something else because you got the white salt crystals and then it basically just straight onto the pink lake. It's incredible.
Although pink lakes are not uncommon on the mainland area of Esperance that faces Middle Island, none of them are as persistently rosy in their complexion as Lake Hillier. The mystery of what causes Lake Hillier's intense color is one that had plagued scientists for decades.
Pink lakes are actually quite common in the region around Esperance. There are several of them, although none are as stable and as bright pink as Lake Hillier is. It's as unique in that sense.
We used to have a pink lake in Esperance here. It's still called Pink Lake, but unfortunately it's a very dull grey now. And I think the fact that it's had a lot of interaction with man and they mined the salt out of it for so long, the saline content has decreased and hence the colour is no longer there. I think that the island has had such little interaction with man is why it stayed so pristine and pink.
Could Lake Hillier's salt content explain this striking pink color? Jamin's observations could explain why the lake stands out from others. Lake Hillier, after all, is a salt lake. Salt lakes form when water flowing into a lake has no escape and so evaporates, leaving behind minerals in its place.
The lake itself is around 35% salt. That's 10 times saltier than seawater, which is only 3.5% salt. It's so salty that it starts to sting your skin. So it's not that pleasant. I dreamed of going for a swim in the lake. After it was stinging my skin, I decided against that. In fact, washed off in the ocean to get the salt off me, because the ocean is so less salty than the lake is.
Some scientists have speculated that a type of algae is the source of Lake Hillier's candy floss pink tone. But with such a high salt content, could even algae endure Lake Hillier's salinity?
People were thinking maybe it was a chemical in the lake, or people were thinking it was the algae in the lake that's producing this pigment color. They theorized it would be an algae because they were able to detect algae that did grow in these pink lakes. And the algae is a red color as well, so it kind of made sense. But no one had really proven that the algae was the cause of the color.
The cause of Lake Hillier's blushing pink complexion puzzled Ken and his colleagues, working for a global study called the Extreme Microbiome Project. The project's mission is to improve techniques for detecting and recording genetic characteristics of unusual communities of microbes. In particular, those found in extreme environments, like the red waterfalls in Antarctica, and even the International Space Station. Their analysis of Lake Hillier was the first in the world to prove the real reason behind the mysterious bubblegum pink water.
The reason why we wanted to do Lake Hillier is because it was such a weird looking lake. This bright pink color had us all intrigued. What might it be that's causing that color to be present?
To establish what was causing the water's remarkable color, the research team took 45 different samples from Lake Hillier.
The really interesting thing about the water is it does stay pink. I've got a bottle of it in my lab office there that's still quite pink to this day. The organisms are very robust. They survive away from the lake.
Ken's team was the first in the world to take samples from the lake and establish there was indeed life in the lake. Its inhabitants are microscopic, so Ken's team used genetic profiling to identify the mix of organisms living there. And what made up the various life forms surprised them. Algae, it turned out, was not the main resident.
With our genetic tests, we found that 20% of all the DNA from the lake was from this one organism, Selenobacter ruber.
Selenobacter ruber is not an algae, but a red-colored bacterium, one that thrives in extreme conditions like those found in Lake Hillier.
So it really is the most populous organism in the lake, the most common bacteria in the lake. And because of that, its being pink is spread across the lake at quite a high concentration, and so the whole lake is pink.
The high quality of the red Selenobacter ruber explains the glorious pink complexion of Lake Hillier. Yet the consistency of Lake Hillier's hue is unusual.
Lake Hillier seems to be the only lake that's constantly pink and doesn't seasonally fluctuate. No other lake in the world that we are aware of has that stability.
Although this bacteria has been found in other salt lakes around the world, the variety found in Lake Hillier could be unique.
The main organism that we found, Selenobacter ruber, has been detected in other salt lakes around the world, and those are also pink. We might be looking at a unique Australian species of this organism, though, in Lake Hillier. There haven't been that many genetic studies done on other lakes to know that yet.
Selenobacter ruber uses its pink pigment much like plant uses chlorophyll. The pigment harvests light and converts it into energy. This unusual organism's survival depends on living in places with high salt concentrations.
It would die at a salt concentration of less than 15%, so it cannot live in ocean water because it's not salty enough. The organisms themselves have evolved to tolerate the high salt environments.
The extreme living conditions in Selenobacter ruber make it what is called an extremophile. Extremophiles can only flourish in extreme environments, which is what has piqued the interest of space explorers. Could it be that the otherworldly Lake Hillier can tell us something about the possibility of life on other planets?
Some of the extremophiles that we have been studying have been theorized to exist on other moons or planets. These are extreme environments also, and so if something is going to survive there, it's going to be a very robust and hardy organism like the extremophiles are.
To understand how these organisms cope under these extreme circumstances, some scientists have been growing organisms in conditions comparable to Mars and of Jupiter's moon Europa.
We have some idea what the conditions are, for example, on Europa. So some of those planets we know that there's water. So even Mars has evidence of some ice caps. And we're growing our terrestrial Earth organisms under those conditions. And they survive very well. So there's a whole new science of astrobiology because we know there's going to be similar creatures out there somewhere.
Who knows what else these briny pink waters may one day yield? For now, research continues into the origins and inhabitants of Middle Island. With the Pink Lake right in the center, a focal point in this intriguing mystery.
That's why it's so unique, I think. Coupled with the history of it all, if you made it up in a story, people wouldn't believe it, really, would they? You know, it's incredible.
Today, science can look to the seemingly impossible habitat of Lake Hillier to help us understand what could be living beyond our skies.
Aboriginal people are still there, looking at an ancient landscape that's been their home for many thousands of years.
Could this be the most serene rush hour on Earth? This is where icebergs assemble before gliding out to the coast. But this is no ordinary coast. The smooth, sandy beach is as black as a night sky. Twinkling on it like stars are shiny beachgoers made of ice. Glazed sculptures adorn this shore of Diamond Beach. Situated on the southeast coast of Iceland is a parade of icy figures. A sight that ranks as one of the rarest on the planet. Being here on a clear day is a privilege. Heavy cloud, sleet, rain, and snow often cover this area, reducing visibility and concealing the glistening gems and mountainous ranges that make this area so unique. The same forces that give rise to the almost impossible beauty of the scene before you also often keep its wondrous beauty shrouded in mystery. Here at the base of a glacier, this site is a relatively new feature. Less than a century ago, these elegant icebergs didn't exist.
You're seeing a snapshot of a time, of a place that is constantly changing. It was very different 10 years ago. 10 years before that, it was still much different. And it will be different 10 years from now. I would say that the most unique thing about the region around the Glacier Lagoon is when people realized the amount of environmental change that has happened there over the last 100 years. That where people are standing, you have this very large lake. This was all under ice 80, 90 years ago. There was no lake. It was just the coast, a torrential glacial river, and the glacier.
The abundance of icebergs today is a result of the changing landscape that is responding to the changing climate. The source of this evolving ice world is the glacier. This giant mass of compacted ice is on the move. It acts just like a river as it heads downhill, although one in extreme slow motion. About 500 years ago, Iceland entered a period of bitterly cold winters. It was a period some scientists call the Little Ice Age.
There has been glaciers in Iceland for thousands of years. But the Little Ice Age was a period started in medieval time, and here in Iceland was not really over until the late 19th century. The glaciers were advancing.
During this period, heavy winter snowfalls more than replenished the summer melt. But as the 19th century approached, the balance of snow to melt shifted, causing the glacier to reduce in size.
In 1890, there was a place where there were only 200 meters left for it to reach the sea. Then it started to retreat.
In its wake, the glacier has carved out a deep bed in the ground. A bed that would 50 years later become a lake.
But the lagoon started to form in the 1930s. And it has grown enormously since. When I first came there as a kid in 1970, it was much, much smaller, and you can see the big changes that happened. It's quite clear that this lake can get 3 times longer than it is today, because there is such a deep channel that the glacier is now flowing inside, and it's retreating very fast. And this is now the deepest lake in Iceland.
In 1991, researchers mapped the base of Iceland's largest glaciers, including this one.
This survey revealed a deep trench that goes some 20 kilometers inland. And that's where the lake has great potential of expanding as the glacier retreats.
Even now, it continues to grow. Its expansion accelerated by the climate and location.
If you visit the Glacier Lagoon, Jökulsárlón as we call it, then I would say you should think about the change that you are witnessing.
Fed by the glacial melt and the influx of seawater from the nearby Atlantic Ocean, it's as if this grand glacier is bowing to the insatiable lake.
It's also a fact of, we have here a direct contact between the meltwater, or the glacial lake itself, and the ocean. So we have high tide and low tide here, meaning that warmer salt water, ocean water, flows into the lake, which warms up the lake, which increases the melting of the ice. So this lake is, over the last 2 decades, has doubled in size. So this is a very fast process which is occurring here.
Fortunately for us, as the glacier retreats from the coastline, it doesn't disappear entirely. Instead, it leaves behind a trail in its wake, a series of icebergs.
This is the front of the glacier. This is the calving front of the glacier. There are many different processes forming at the snout of the glacier.
This snout becomes unstable owing to the forward momentum of the glacier. Where chunks of loosened ice break off, they plummet noisily into the water, where they can generate a small tidal wave.
It has been calculated that somewhere around 0.6 cubic kilometers of ice calves into the lake every year. It's a lot.
These naturally formed masterpieces continue to transform.
Calving icebergs and floating icebergs, they are very scenic. And of course, this is a phase which we are looking at. People can enjoy it. People are sailing on the lakes. People are kayaking on the lakes.
As the lake grows, it's creating a new habitat of its own, one that is attracting different types of marine life.
People have been doing some studies about the marine life, which seems to be growing here in this lake due to the direct contact with the coast. For example, we have seen a few small types of whales here, and then there are seals, as you might have noticed in the background, and some trouts and other fishes.
In the springtime, an increasing variety of birds are flocking here. But by the winter, it's the icebergs that gather in the lagoon. Come the summer, just as their parent glacier melts, so do these icebergs. They gather at the mouth of the narrow channel. Their only access from the lagoon to the coast. Massaged by the water encasing them and the summer sun above them, they continue to change shape. At last, they're small enough to be carried down the channel. For that to happen, they must wait for the tide to change. When the tide does change, it's as if the currents are gulping water out of the lake before breathing water back into it again.
You can see that the icebergs, they are drifting in when you have high tide and out when they are low tide. It's just the location. We are just a few hundred meters from the ocean.
Some icebergs begin their journey in the wider ocean, though most remain close to the shore. They bob up and down before waves push them back up onto the beach. Displayed along the beach, the icebergs continue to morph, the warmer seawater smoothing the icebergs into different shapes yet again. The effect is a myriad of resplendent forms. Churning, washing, tossing. The strong tide carries them out to sea. Those that stay are broken down and washed ashore. Their glistening shapes line the beach either side of the channel, enthralling locals and visitors alike at all times of the day. At this time of year, the sun only just dips to inspire keen photographers to brave the cold and capture the natural beauty. At the height of summer, this is one of the best spots in Iceland to enjoy the midnight sun. These stunning natural sculpted ice forms will eventually melt away. Even as they reach the climax of their life cycle, their ability to dazzle never dims. It's no wonder the sparkling diamond beach is considered a crown jewel of Iceland. Adding to the striking scene is the black sand that blankets the shoreline. The unusual terrain is a result of the interplay between glaciers and volcanic rocks left behind from past eruptions. Glaciers are among the natural world's most effective excavators, carving out valleys and pushing downhill vast quantities of soil and sand that were once volcanic rock.
In the last million years, glaciers have very frequently covered large parts of Iceland. The south coast of Iceland, there is hardly any harbors, there's just the sand. They are the way they are because there is so much loose material that is carried by the glaciers and the glacier rivers to the coast. And most of this loose material is volcanic ash and volcanic rocks that are sort of easily fragmented, and they form the whole south coast of Iceland.
While this site is unique to Iceland, it is not the only place in the world where ice flakes create breathtaking images across the shore. For the residents at Davis Station at East Antarctica, their front doorstep is a constantly evolving landscape. In a similar process, these icebergs in the Southern Ocean are nudged along into the bay. Many of these calve off from the nearby Sorsdal Glacier, flowing with the natural currents and the wind in and around the shore. Some of the bergs break up, washing ashore as glistening gems, peacefully clinking on the beach. In Antarctica, you get magic hours. Summer at Davis Station means 24 hours of daylight. If you were up at 1 in the morning, these serene spectacles are up with you. Captured at the right time of the day, and with the help of a vivid pink sky, the results are awe-inspiring. Unlike a real gem, the scenes at Antarctica and at Diamond Beach are not everlasting, and nor are the events that produce this extraordinary sight. As unimaginable as it seems, experts are projecting an Iceland without glaciers. A projection that includes the glacier responsible for these majestic icebergs.
We are seeing a very large change in just the shape of the land and the landscape because the glaciers are disappearing very fast. Well, they're not, perhaps too early to say that they're disappearing, but all the evidence suggests that a very large part of the glaciers will be gone in 100 years, and in 200 years, all the glaciers will be gone in Iceland.
While glaciers create a dramatic imprint on the landscape, what would be the impact of their disappearance?
And that would mean, for example, at Glacier Lagoon on the southeast coast, we would have this very large lake that would extend all the way to the mountains that are now people can see in the background. In the glacier would be gone.
The naturally crafted ice sculptures that glide through Glacier Lagoon and emerge on Diamond Beach are fleeting monuments to an ever-changing world. One where the landscape is less permanent than we may think.
It's a reminder how fragile our nature is and how we have to preserve it.
What is impossible is to foresee the natural phenomena that we will see next year or the year after. It's always full of surprises. Use your senses and think about it. This will be different when I come here next time.
Standing proud across the landscape is an army of mysterious rock towers. These captivating columns inspire many and mystify others. You have entered the impossible Shi-Lin Stone Forest. Impossible because it shouldn't exist.
So the stone forest shouldn't be there. They should have been dissolved.
The Shilin Stone Forest is located in southern China. For centuries, the local Yi people have revered the area. According to local legend, one rock in particular is said to be the frozen figure of a beautiful Yi maiden who drowned in a flood. As the story goes, the rock of Ashima is believed to protect the Sani people and serves as a symbol of power to choose who you marry, after she refused to wed a man she did not love. The scientific mystery behind the stone's forest formation only came to light in 1960, when Hungarian geographer Deans Bulaj completed a study of them. Yet even today, the impossibility of the stone forest continues to intrigue.
Nature can be even sometimes more fascinating than those legends.
Dr. Fred Jordan is a geochronologist. As someone who studies the age of rocks, he's among those who are intrigued by the very existence of the stone forest. Although many generations of rock columns live here, at first sight their existence is against the odds.
The youngest column is 800,000 and the oldest is 3 million, something like that. The rocks are way too old.
The presence of these fortress-like formations is surprising, owing to the vulnerable materials they're made of. Minerals that, anywhere else, should have dissolved away by now.
When you unravel the complete history, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But at first people are like, it shouldn't be there.
The complete history of the stone forest begins 270 million years ago, when what we see today looked very different. Because this was a world that started underwater.
Right before 270 or 280 million years ago, there was all shallow sea. So there was, in shallow sea, it's very simple ecosystem. You got coral, because you got light that go through.
The coral, along with tiny crustaceans it attracted, shared a common ingredient that would define the landscape we see today. That ingredient was calcium carbonate.
A lot of organisms that use calcium carbonate to produce their skeleton or their shell. And when they die, they just fall at the bottom of the ocean.
The tiny pieces of coral and shell accumulated on the sandy seabed. Over hundreds of thousands of years, they gradually transformed into a thick layer of limestone rock. There, at the bottom of the sea, they might have remained entombed in their new form, if not for a series of extraordinary episodes. The first was on a tectonic scale. When two plates slid over each other, they progressively hoisted up a large swath of seabed out of the water, leaving it exposed to the air, wind, sun, and rain.
You have limestone and you percolate water through it. So if you just use normal water, nothing's gonna happen so much. But if you use slightly acidic water, then you're gonna start to dissolve the rock.
Rainwater, being naturally slightly acidic, was the first sculptor of these regal rock columns. But over millions of years, its corrosive carvings would have worn away these rocks by now. How then can they still be standing?
The oldest column is 3-4 million years, but it's just too old to have been preserved all that time. So there must be something in between that happened.
That something in between happened 10 million years later, and it took the form of a massive volcanic event. Multiple volcanoes released a flood of molten rock that covered hundreds of square kilometers, including this limestone bed.
Now the rock it covers sort of fried them, but everything below got protected by this armor, if you want, of basalt.
Basalt, the rock born out of volcanic eruptions, is more robust against rainwater than its limestone cousin. Its presence acted as a shield, slowing down the erosion of what would eventually become the stone forest. But that still doesn't explain the age of some of the older rock columns that stand today.
Why is it so old? Because it's been protected twice. One time by a basalt armor, the other time by a sediment armor.
This sediment armor was the gift of a lake that emerged about 40 million years ago, on top of the basalt and limestone layers. The lake emerged after tectonic plates began colliding into each other, causing an indentation in the landscape. Today, the signature of this lake can be seen in the silhouettes of the different layers of rock that remain.
Now, if you go in the stone forest, you can see something very interesting. You get shape where it's a fat piece of rock, and then it's slim, and then it's fat again, and then it's slim. And that is the different nature of the rock.
Over millions of years, the rain and wind continue to slowly fashion folds into the rock faces, working its way through the layers of sediment and basalt, eventually reaching the responsive limestone layer once more. As the rain pleated the rock into these magnificent walls, it carried minerals away with it. But where has all this runoff gone?
You get those nice pillars of stone, but below, there's plenty of cracks, holes, caves. We don't see it.
As the water runoff filtered through the soil and into the caves, below ground, the limestone minerals were reborn to spectacular effect.
The consequence is when you go in caves, that's why you see stalagmite and stalactite.
For the people who live here, the stone forest is an inspiring vision, the rock of Ashima encapsulating an epic story, which is fitting. The presence of the stone forest today is both a marvel and something of a miracle, as though the Earth's natural forces have conspired to preserve these stunning towers for the world to enjoy.
The extraordinary variety of plants and animals on Earth make our planet unique. In its harmony and balance, the spectacle of nature is born of an age-old evolution that has endured almost as long as the Earth itself. To date, scientists have discovered nearly 2 million species. But this represents only 15% of life on Earth. Huge swaths of this planet's biodiversity are completely unknown, especially in our forests and oceans. Biodiversity produces oxygen, provides food for plants and animals, and helps to purify the soil and water. Our forests and oceans play an essential role in regulating climate, allowing billions of organisms to celebrate life on Earth. But this fragile balance is threatened.
Our lives depend on biological diversity. Species and ecosystems are disappearing at an unsustainable rate. We humans are the cause. We stand to lose a wide variety of environmental goods and services that we take for granted.
Researchers believe that the Earth is undergoing one of the most significant mass extinction events in its history, caused by our civilization. Our expansion is affecting the ecosystems of all other species.
We are changing our world, and species are disappearing.
As humans, we can have a drastic effect on this planet. We can't just do things and not think about the long-term consequences.
It's a serious issue. We need to change minds and change attitudes towards nature.
Human impact on biodiversity has greatly increased since the start of the Industrial Revolution during the 18th century. Massive technological and economic development have driven the expansion of our civilization across the planet. The Earth's population has grown from 700 million to 7 billion in less than 300 years. Worldwide, humanity has become a phenomenal force. Greenhouse gas levels have not been this high for over 1 million years. We have stripped large predators of their territories by confining them to reserves or by destroying the world's large forests. All over the Earth, plants and animals are increasingly struggling to coexist with humanity. Every day, nearly 130 species go extinct, probably one of the highest rates of extinction the Earth has ever seen. For several years, the oceanographic schooner Sedna 4 has been sailing the world's oceans. After expeditions in the Arctic and Antarctic, its crew has now embarked on a 3-year voyage around the world. During their mission, 1,000 days for the planet, they will meet with scientists who have dedicated their lives to protecting biodiversity. Mission leader, Jean Lemire.
We set sail for Central America, a region with one of the highest diversity of species in the world. The preservation of habitats here is vital to the survival of thousands of species of fish, reptiles, and mammals. Here, The many shapes and bright colors of biodiversity stimulate our desire to protect them even more.
In Costa Rica, the team sets off in search of one of the last big cats of the Americas. These top predators in the food chain help control populations in their ecosystems. Scientists call the jaguar an umbrella species. By protecting it, the balance among all the other species that share its habitat is also protected. Unfortunately, the jaguar is threatened. Humans hunt its prey, and farms, ranches, and ever-expanding urbanization are fragmenting its territory. In less than a century, the jaguar's habitat has been cut in half. Today, it is confined to pockets of land that are becoming smaller and smaller. Maintaining connections among these pockets of land is essential to the genetic health of the species, because jaguars are part of a single extended family that stretches from Mexico to Argentina. In eastern Costa Rica, a reserve has been created to protect one of the jaguar's habitats. This is a private reserve that regularly attracts scientists such as biologist Jose Gonzalez and Jan Schipper. They have dedicated their lives to protecting these big cats.
Hey, nice spot. Yeah. Oh, look at there, look at there. Oh, yeah. Those are jaguar marks. Wow, even there. All the way up. So that's a good spot for jaguar. This is a perfect spot. Yeah. This is the place we're shooting.
A jaguar has marked its territory by scratching a tree.
Get sunlight direct to it, and then lock.
Installing a motion sensing camera will record the passage of jaguars and photo ID them. Using photographs over several years, researchers have shown that the reserve is frequented by about 14 jaguars. And videos highlight the problem of jaguars coexisting with local farmers.
Oh, look at that.
Oh my
What's
God.
this?
That's definitely a cow, and that looks like Cora.
Yeah, that's Cora, for sure. That's amazing.
That's amazing. Oh, see the power in his jaws.
Wow. With the strength of the animal.
Yeah. So I suppose that, you know, when a jaguar cut a cow like this, it brings lots of conflict.
Yeah, because that's the basis for conflict, people hunting jaguars in revenge. But on the other side, it is also a consequence of problems because people is hunting the prey base. So that's why they go out and hunt cattle, because they don't have anything else to eat.
Jaguars are more and more threatened because the increased conversion of virgin forest into livestock pasture reduces the prey available to them. The reserve has an area of about 100 square kilometers, which is not enough to support the jaguar population. Today, the reserve is bordered by a nearly continuous succession of pastures and cattle farms. The jaguars find it difficult to move among the isolated pockets of forest.
can see, there's only little patches here and there of forest with agriculture, clear-cut areas for cattle and so forth. Pastures obviously has very little value in terms of a jaguar being able to cross. So we don't necessarily need continuous virgin forest from here to the coast. We just need a mix of forest types along with different types of more sustainable agriculture to connect it. And that's a lot easier to sell that to landowners instead of saying, oh, we need to take your land away and put it in conservation.
The challenge for scientists is to protect the jaguars when they leave the reserve's boundaries. To do so, they must establish migration corridors. In this way, they hope to convince farmers to preserve sections of forest on their land that allow the big cats and their prey to move about their territory. But first, they must capture one.
So we use some pheromones to attract the animals.
By equipping a jaguar with a tracking collar, the scientists will be able to precisely monitor its movements.
And this is the trap. So it has a little mechanism like right in the bottom. We're gonna check it right now just to see if it's working fine. If jaguars disappear, what we're gonna see is just overabundance of many other species, probably changing entirely what we know as biodiversity right now. So it's a huge change that is gonna occur. That probably also works when you don't have sharks in the sea. The entire community changes.
Large predators are threatened all over the world, both on land and in the ocean. In recent decades, populations of sharks, tuna, and swordfish have declined by 90% around the world. During this same period, fishing intensity has increased dramatically. More and more, ecosystems are suffering the consequences of this overexploitation. In the coral reefs of the Caribbean, large predators are increasingly rare, which has weakened ecosystems and opened up a niche for an invasive species. The lionfish. Biologist Tim Pusak of the University of Oregon has studied this phenomenon for many years.
So lionfish that naturally live in the Indo-Pacific have been taken from their home by humans, brought over to the US because people like to have them in their aquariums. They're beautiful, stunning fish. It's great to look at them. The problem is they like to eat, and they like to eat a lot. So they'll tend to eat all the other fish that are in the aquarium, and so people just release it into the ocean.
Lionfish have begun to proliferate in Caribbean waters. Genetic studies show that the population began with only 6 individuals. Scientists are now studying the consequences of their presence in the food chain.
It appears that they can eat prey items that are up to about half their body size, which is rather large. They eat every and anything they can get their mouth on. Studies have found that a single lionfish could reduce the number of small coral reef fish by about 90%, so they're having a drastic effect, much greater than any native fish would have.
The smaller fish eaten by the lionfish generally consume large amounts of algae. With no fish left to eat the algae, they proliferate to the point where they suffocate the reef. The lionfish adapted quickly to its new habitat, and this fierce predator has taken advantage of the weakened ecosystems.
Populations exploded since the 1990s and now extend throughout the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, up the eastern seaboard of the US, and working their way down the coast of South America.
The remarkable adaptation of this invasive species to its new environment, combined with the overfishing of large fish, has weakened the health of coral reefs in the Caribbean. Panama has not been spared the influx of invasive species, which are weakening some of the world's richest ecosystems. These ecosystems are home to nearly 50% of the world's amphibian species. Frogs occupy one of the most important niches in the food chain. They consume large amounts of harmful insects and serve as food themselves for many species of reptiles, birds, and fish. In the field of medicine, they have also led to the development of antibiotics and are important in cancer research. Over the past 250 million years, they have withstood many catastrophes affecting life on Earth. But today, frogs are in trouble. A mysterious disease is attacking them where their numbers are highest. To make matters worse, these frogs are also weakened by insecticides and habitat loss. In just a few years, over 100 species have gone extinct. A few years ago, biologist Edgardo Griffith used to come to this river to study frogs.
I used to find 56 species of frogs around this stream alone. And now can't hear anything, really, you know.
The cause of this sharp decline? An invasive species. A mysterious fungus called chytrid has invaded the rivers of Panama's mountains.
The fungus arrived in 2005, killed 90% of the amphibian community, and in some cases 100% of the individuals of certain species. Came, kill, stay, and at the same time it's moving eastward, but it's also coming up from South America.
Found in Mexico as early as 1972, the disease spread to Central America. Other infection sites have been found all over the world. Today, over a third of the world's 6,000 known amphibian species are threatened with extinction.
To me, I used to be a field biologist. Now I think I'm like an extinction biologist.
For scientists, time is running out. Edgardo and his colleagues are trying to capture living frogs in the hopes of learning more about the disease. They organize regular searches in Panama's rivers. Chytrid is spreading at a rate of over 30 kilometers per year. Scientists are trying to understand how it spreads from region to region. When a species nears extinction in nature, scientists often have no other choice but to remove the few survivors from the wild.
This one might be one of the species that we need to focus more into it and see why they survive, you know.
The last remaining individuals of many frog species are today conserved in sterilized containers, isolated from the outside world, where the dangerous fungus threatens their survival. Like Noah's Arks, these containers are only a fragile and temporary means to preserve the genetic heritage of dozens of amphibian species. But this is the best that scientists can do.
Some of them are not dealing with putrid yet in their populations, but we know it's going to get there sooner or later. So we're trying to rescue as many as we can, try to breed them, try to keep them healthy. This might be the last one, so it's a huge responsibility for us.
In the name of all the frogs dying on the jungle floor, the search continues. Long considered among the most ideal frog habitats, Panama's forests are now a real threat to their survival. Today, this unprecedented epidemic is threatening the ecological balance of ecosystems around the world. In the Cayman Islands, it's increasing human population that is harming habitats. Over half of the original environment has been destroyed.
The population of the Cayman Islands is doubling every 12 years. What that means is the footprint on the land here that's taken over by humans is doubling every 12 years.
This habitat reduction is disastrous for certain endemic species, such as the blue iguana. Found only on Grand Cayman, it is considered one of the most threatened species in the world. As the island's largest herbivore, the blue iguana eats large amounts of fruits and flowers, which helps to disperse plant seeds over large areas. This is vital for maintaining the island's delicate plant diversity.
In 2002, we did a very detailed survey, and it was the most depressing survey I've ever been involved in, because all of the places we used to see iguanas, there were none. We think realistically it was probably more like 12 left in the wild, and they weren't finding each other to breed. So the population was doomed. It was functionally extinct, as we put it, technically speaking. They were there, but there was no future.
In 2002, Frederick Burton left his job to dedicate himself to the recovery of this species. Through trial and error, he learned how to hatch baby iguanas in incubators, far from their natural predators.
When they hatch, they're tiny, they're about this long, but they grow very, very fast. And by the time they're 2 years old, they're naturally predator-proof, effectively. They get too big for the native snakes.
Oh, this is the captive facility. We have a few hundred iguanas in here.
The young iguanas are given refuge at the Grand Cayman's Royal Botanical Park. Breeding adults, responsible for the proliferation of the species, are also kept here.
They have a need for a lot of space. I mean, we found this out. Originally, when we built this facility, we thought this was all we needed. And then we discovered they needed more space. We studied them in the wild, and then we found out, whoa, an animal like this would probably have a territory of maybe an acre or something like that. 2-year-olds that we're going to put out. So Jean, these are the cages where we have the 2-year-old iguanas, the ones that we're getting ready to release into the wild.
It is now time for these young iguanas to take their true place in nature. But will this new captive-born generation succeed in recolonizing Grand Cayman's weakened environment?
Next one.
Nice. So you will sleep there for tonight, right?
Yeah, they'll be hanging in the backpacks, the same backpacks we're going to take in the morning. So they'll cool down and they'll be fine, ready to go.
After years of effort, Frederick Burton convinced the government to establish 2 protected areas on the island, where he can now release his young iguanas.
So Jean, we are on the boundary now of the Collier's Wilderness Reserve. This is the protected area on our left now. It's not huge, but the island isn't big, yeah?
By protecting the reserve from the assault of development, Frederick Burton has protected more than just the iguanas, because dozens of other threatened species also live here.
We will get rid of our packs here and we'll just take the iguana in. Here you go. Here's the box. Oh yes.
Whoa.
So now he will spend all night inside this box. All night he will sleep in here, and in the morning at first light he will come out into this strange world. And the population has gone from about 12 now to about 650, 700, somewhere around there.
A human initiative saved the blue iguana from extinction. Years of effort and protection have resulted in a protected area adapted to these animals' needs. Frederick Burton now hopes that these winning conditions will allow the most threatened reptile on the planet to begin breeding in the wild again.
The perseverance of Frederick Burton is inspiring. It proves that sometimes the efforts of a few dedicated people can make up for the abuses of society.
Sometimes evolution itself can put a species at risk.
All right.
Over time, a species can become isolated on an island, like Escudo de Veraguas, off the coast of Panama. Biologist Bryson Voirin has dedicated his life to studying what some scientists believe is the rarest mammal on Earth, the pygmy three-toed sloth. These sloths live in one of the world's most productive and most useful ecosystems in terms of biodiversity, the mangrove forest.
No, that looks like mangrove. It's not. It's really shallow.
In the tropics, mangroves protect shorelines from erosion, and they provide food and shelter for many threatened species.
Oh, hey, look, it's eating. There's a sloth right there. It's a female. Yeah, she's eating a leaf. She's got it right in her mouth.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, she's got a baby. Let's see if we're real quiet. Maybe we won't. It's one of the rarest mammals on Earth, and there's 2 of them right there.
The pygmy three-toed sloth is found only on the island of Escudo de Veraguas. Discovered in 2001, it was immediately classified as critically endangered. Recent studies have indicated that this sloth lives exclusively in the mangrove, making it even more vulnerable, because worldwide, mangroves are being affected by climate change and human development. At current rates, they could disappear entirely by the end of the 21st century. Bryson Voyerin is concerned about the survival of pygmy sloths because studies show that there are only 63 of them. During his last expedition, he attached radio collars to 10 sloths. Bryson expects to find them in the mangrove because the animals move very little and use the natural camouflage of the mangrove to avoid predators.
Oh, wow. There he is, right there.
Right there, in the mangroves again.
Yeah, he's still in the mangrove, so he hasn't really gone anywhere in the past month or so.
In the days that follow, he finds 9 of the 10 pygmy sloths, all in the mangrove. But the team is worried because one is missing.
Sebastian.
Jean.
Hi, Jean, Sebastian.
Hi, Sebastian. Yeah, we're just at the end of the mangroves. We lost our signal a little bit. We're gonna need some help.
Okay.
In 2005, several families of fishermen took up residence on the island.
¿Has visto aquí perezosos en los bosques? ¿Sí?
Their knowledge of the area could help find the missing sloth.
It doesn't really bother.
Hay mucho.
Do you think that the one that live in a mangrove, they live in a mangrove, but there is a lot more right behind in the jungle here.
So let's check in the forest for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Muchas gracias.
This surprising information contradicts previous studies indicating that the mangrove is the pygmy sloth's sole habitat. Bryson decides to search in one of the channels leading into the forest.
Number 5 is the one that I just don't know where he went. But he might have actually gone out of the mangroves and into the forest, which would be pretty exciting because that means that he's actually eating other things besides mangrove leaves, and he's in the interior of the island maybe. Hopefully we can find him. All right, I got him on the 900 frequency. Hear that chirping? That's the sloth. So he must be straight back that way.
Every step away from the mangrove would appear to increase the credibility of the locals. But it is also possible that Bryson will only find the collar of a poached sloth. But if the sloth is found in the forest, it would be great news for the species. In nearby Costa Rica, Jan and Jose have yet to catch a jaguar. The scientists are concerned because the animal's distribution in the reserve is well known, and the lack of any tracks is surprising. They redouble their efforts in other sectors of the reserve. Capturing such a cunning animal is a huge challenge, but it's an essential part of the research, because only through a better understanding of the jaguar's migration patterns can its living space be increased. On Grand Cayman, Frederick Burton and his blue iguanas have benefited from their protected habitat for nearly 2 years.
Joel? There's a hatchling.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the first wild-born young iguana we have ever seen in this area. This is a wild iguana that has hatched here in the protected area.
So it is working.
It's working. It's
great.
Working. I think it's very interesting working on a small island because it is like a microcosm of what is going on everywhere in the world. And it's very important, I think, for people working in conservation to spend at least part of their time working on things that can succeed. It's important for personal motivation, but it's also important for the way that conservation is presented to the world. People get very tired of hearing bad news stories all the time.
The wild birth of a baby iguana is a triumph of nature. On Escudo de Veraguas, the radio signal leads Bryson Boyrin on his quest.
Yeah, you could just see her fur. Hey, buddy. Okay. Look at that. Wow. Whew. Victoria. Hey. Whoa, you're looking big. Oh, man.
That's great.
Oh, she looks great. Look at her.
Yeah.
That's great. She looks like she's been doing very good here in the forest and not in the mangroves, so she looks very healthy.
You know, one thing I think that this shows is that even though the mangroves are being cut, that may not be as big of a risk for the pygmy sloths, because if they're able to eat other things in the forest, at least they have other food sources besides just the mangroves. So I'm pretty confident to say that there are more sloths than just 63 on Escudo. There are probably a lot more. If they're in the whole island here like this, that means the population is pretty good.
Ready to go?
All right,
yeah,
Victoria.
Back to home, sweet home.
So the locals were right. If the pygmy sloths are spread over the entire island and live in its abundant forest, scientists will have to re-examine their numbers and maybe even the status of the species. It's fantastic news for the pygmy three-toed sloth. This important discovery was the result of collaboration between scientists and the island's inhabitants.
El último es. ¿Dónde está el
But the happiness of this day is short-lived. Not far away, a nasty surprise awaits the scientists. A green turtle, another endangered species, is trapped in the dugout of a group of poachers.
So here in the islands, you know, so they probably gonna cut it up, smoke it, and then they will cook it slowly. And they'll finish with it. And this animal can stay at least a week before he starts to get weak.
Do they really know what they're doing?
I really think they really know what they're doing. The police would come around here maybe 1 or 2 times in a month, just pass around looking for drugs people, but they really don't looking to see if people killing sea turtles.
That's pretty sad to see.
It's pretty sad, you know, for me, it's because, you know, I worked 13 years protecting sea turtle with the Peter Maitland Animal and Project in Cayo Zapatia. And my father got more than 20 years saving them, you know, trying to save them, and I do the same, you know, so it's pretty sad to see they catch it and they're going to kill it, you know.
Poaching is yet another threat in the fight to conserve endangered species. And the problem is widespread, even in protected areas.
So? Bad news? Nothing.
Nothing. We checked all the traps again, where we put the extra pheromones out last night, and nothing.
No tracks, nothing.
No tracks. We actually went along a couple extra trails and checked that where there were some muddy spots from the rain that we had the other day. We haven't seen a track since you've been here.
Well, that's life, I suppose.
Yep, we're obviously very concerned about what might be causing this. Even if we have all this conservation momentum behind us, it can just take a few people to come in and maybe snare some animals, which is what we're hearing. It's depressing.
But where are Cora and the other jaguars? There are rumors that poachers have recently been operating inside the reserve, and two of them were even bold enough to brag of their horrible acts on social networks.
Oh my God, that's sad.
It's a catastrophe for the local population, which numbers only 14 jaguars.
How far should we go to protect threatened species? A private militia patrols the reserve every day. Around here, they don't mess around when it comes to conservation. There are rampant rumors that up to 11 jaguars have been killed in the region, possibly even within the boundaries of the reserve. Jaguar skins have been found on the black market.
It makes me sad because it's as if they were threatening members of my own family. So I don't know what we're going to do with these poachers. So much work, love, and sacrifice over so many years, only to see our jaguars killed. We're going to return to the mountain and try to find these hunters who shoot at anything that moves.
On Little Cayman, another type of hunting party is being organized. Local diving associations are mobilizing to wipe out the lionfish, the species now considered the worst poacher in the Caribbean. But the divers must keep up the hunting pressure if they are going to neutralize this invasion, because lionfish reproduce extremely quickly. This is not sustainable. So they have turned to a more natural solution. They are enlisting the help of the few groupers that live near the coastline. Little by little, they are training them to hunt the invader. Who knows whether these few fish will develop a taste for the lionfish and transmit this new feeding habit to other fish. Earth's ecosystems are today weakened and threatened by a variety of external pressures. Conservation efforts are vital, but the hard work of many can be completely undone by the greed of just a few.
Buying the turtles' freedom cost only a few dollars. A modest sum given the situation. We even wondered if we were not trying to appease our own conscience in the face of so much indifference. But this was a living symbol of nature's difficult coexistence with humanity. We just couldn't leave it there and do nothing.
I'm optimistic because I believe we can change things, and if human being realizes the importance, there's still something we can do, but we are right on the edge.
The coral reef system could be in dire straits, but we need to take efforts in order to mitigate these, and we can stop fishing larger fish and keep them on the reef, and it's important that we do it now.
I'm not really sure which species will survive and which will survive into the future, but I think life will find a way.
The lionfish invasion really highlights for me is the importance for humans to understand that they can have a drastic effect, and they need to realize what they're doing before they do it.
When you're in a forest with predators, it gives you a new respect for life. It gives you a new respect for the connectivity of all things. You actually feel like you're not on the top of the world. Maybe that's where we should begin, is to not just educate people in the classroom, but take people out of the classroom into what's left of the wilderness so that we can actually save it.
As you inspire people and educate them, I think then they'll start to care more about it and help protect it.
The troubled coexistence between humans and the different forms of life on our planet too often translates into the loss of species that play key roles in ecosystems. Perhaps we can draw inspiration from the remarkable work of scientists who dedicate their lives to preserving endangered species. Humanity has a duty to re-establish a harmonious relationship with nature, and do it soon. It is within our grasp to sustainably and harmoniously develop the Earth's resources. But time is running out if our legacy to future generations is to inspire a wave of change and a new attitude, one of respect for biodiversity and the essential harmony among all forms of life.